Tonight's story is proof that even the most ordinary places, the kind you pass every day without a second thought, can hide something far more terrifying than you'd ever imagine. People think horror waits in graveyards, in haunted houses, in forests after dark, but I've learned it waits in places where people gather, laugh, and eat fried chicken without a second thought. My name's William, and I work at KFC. Not just any KFC, but the one on the edge of town, right off the highway where the only things that ever stop are trucks, lost travelers, and people too tired to cook for themselves. It wasn't supposed to be my forever job. I only applied because I needed money fast. And fast food doesn't ask questions, no resumes, no background checks. Just a uniform that smells like grease the second you put it on. At first it felt like any other job, the fryers screamed. Like angry metal kettles, the smell of oil clung to me so strong, I carried it home into my sheets. And every night my arms were speckled with tiny burns I stopped noticing after the first week. But beneath the routine, there was something else, something wrong. Not the kind of wrong that comes with bad managers or broken ice machines, but the kind that makes shadows last longer than they should, the kind that makes you feel watched, even when you're alone. From the outside, our KFC looks like a relic. The halogen bulbs over the lot flicker and buzz like hornets. The once bright Colonel Sanders mural on the wall has faded until his white suit looks gray. His smile never faded, though that part of the paint always looked fresh, like someone touched it up every week. At first, I didn't think about it. I was too busy learning fryer timers, memorizing register codes, and avoiding Greg, the manager, who had a grin that never reached his eyes. He told me I'd mostly work evenings, sometimes closing, and he said it like it was a promise, not a schedule. "You'll get used to it," he told me, but the way Maria the shift lead glanced at me when he said it, I could tell she didn't think I would. Maria was different from the others. She had this way of watching reflections instead, of people's faces, like she trusted glass more than words. I didn't understand it until that first closing shift. That night, we'd locked the doors at midnight, scrubbed the counters, stacked the chairs on the tables, and were just mopping up the dining room when it happened. The lights flickered. It's not a random stutter, but a patterned 3 short, 3 long, 3 short, like someone tapping out Morse code across the ceiling. I froze, mop dripping suds onto the floor, counting the rhythm in my head without meaning to. That's when Maria's voice cut through the silence, sharp but low. "Don't look at it." I turned, confused. "Why not?" She didn't answer, didn't even look at me. She shoved a tray of biscuits into the oven like she hadn't said anything at all. But I saw the way her hand shook as she pushed the timer button, and I knew. It wasn't a joke. We finished closing, but I couldn't stop glancing up at those lights. The pattern burned into me, still pulsing behind my eyelids as we clocked out. On my way out the door, I turned back just once. The mural of the Colonel loomed over the empty dining room, that wide grin stretched too far, too perfect. For a second, just a split second, I swear the paint shimmered, as if his smile had widened to acknowledge me. I told myself it was exhaustion, that my eyes were playing tricks in the fluorescent glow.
Eyes.
But when I lay in bed later that night, the smell of fryer grease still thick on my skin. All I could see was that smile, white, sharp, unchanging, like it had caught me listening. There are the rules. Corporate gives you temperatures, timers, hand-washing reminders printed in cheerful font. Then there are the rules they don't print. The ones whispered down from one shift lead to the next, the ones you only notice when you're unlucky enough to be closing. I found them my second week, taped to the office door just under the schedule. It wasn't official paper, just an index card, edges greasy, words scrawled in thick black marker. 1 at 11:45 p.m. Lights will flicker. Keep working. Do not count the beats. 2 during close. Always keep music playing, even low. Silence is an invitation. 3. Leave 1 breast and 1 biscuit in a cardboard clamshell at register 2. Do not open it again. For mop around, not over, the split tile beneath the Colonel mural. 5. Never prop open the walk-in after 12:10 a.m. if it closes on you. Don't knock. Wait, I remember laughing when I first read it because it sounded like an urban legend. The kind of joke you'd tell a new guy to see if he'd fall for it. "Is this for real?" asked Maria, As I punched in my clock-out code that night, she didn't smile. She didn't even look at me. She just said, "The last guy who joked about it doesn't work here anymore." I tried to press. "Quit?" I asked. She was wiping down the counter, but her eyes flicked up toward the mural on the far wall instead of answering me. That silence said more than words. I wanted to forget it, but later that night, during a dinner rush, I noticed something that twisted my stomach. A family of 3 came in: a father, a mother, and a boy who couldn't have been older than 12. They looked normal at first, except for the way the father's voice hit me when he ordered flat, like a recording. No rhythm, no warmth, just words pushed through lips. The mother held the boy's wrist too tightly, as if afraid he might slip away, and the boy kept staring up at the ceiling lights like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. The lights flickered in their pattern 3 short. 3 long, 3 short. The boy's lips moved with the rhythm, like he was counting. Then, as fast as it started, the flicker stopped, and the family sat in silence. They ate without speaking, wiped their table clean, and placed their tray, perfectly centered on the trash bin, like they'd measured it. No one else in the dining room seemed to notice. Just me. Closed, I remembered the card. Against every instinct, I did what it said. I bagged 1 breast and 1 biscuit, placed them in a cardboard clamshell, and left it on register 2. Then, I turned the radio on low, a country station playing a song about gravel roads and broken hearts. The static fuzzed around the edges, but the sound filled the silence. Maria saw me set the clamshell down and gave me the smallest nod I'd ever seen. That was the only sign of approval she'd ever given me. I mopped the floors, careful to circle around the cracked tile beneath the Colonel's painted smile, careful not to sweep across it. At 11:45, the lights flickered again, right on schedule. This time I didn't count. I didn't look. But I swear I heard footsteps across the dining room, not ours, heavier, dragging. The kind of sound you only hear in houses too old for comfort. My skin crawled, but I kept mopping. When we finished, Greg closed the safe and looked me straight in the eye. "Good closing," he said. "You kept the rules." I forced a laugh, and if I hadn't, he slid the drawer shut with a snap that made me jump. His grin didn't move. "You'd learn why we keep them." And that night, lying in bed again, all I could think about was the clamshell at register 2. I couldn't stop imagining someone or something lifting the lid in the empty store, taking what we'd left behind. Most people hate the walk-in freezer for the cold, but cold doesn't scare me. What unsettles me is the way sound changes in there. It's not like a room, it's like a jar. Everything you say gets caught, stretched thin, and then it lingers. Sometimes I think the freezer remembers more than it should. My first week closing alone inside it, I learned the rule about 12:10 the hard way. We just finished bagging up chicken for the morning shift, and Greg told me to grab a 50-pound bag of flour from the walk-in. Easy enough. I slipped inside, the heavy metal door sucking shut behind me with that dull thud I've come to dread. My breath fogged. Racks lined with sealed bags rattled from the shift of the air, and then it happened. Something whispered. Not words exactly, but syllables carried on the frost like steam pressed backward through a pipe. I froze. Flour. Bag clutched to my chest, ears straining. I told myself it was just the refrigeration unit, just a draft. But when I looked at the wall, the condensation had formed lines. Not random drips lines, sharp as handwriting. The first letters smudged into dawn. My throat tightened. "Don't!" "What?" "Don't go deeper. Don't look. Don't breathe." I stepped forward to clear it with my sleeve, and the marks smeared into nothing. I left fast, pulling the bag with me, and nearly tripped when the door seemed to hold on to my jacket sleeve before letting go. Outside, the hiss of the fryers grounded me again. Maria was pushing the oil caddy past, face pale under the fluorescent glow. She glanced at me, at the freezer door still ajar, and said flatly, "After 12, don't linger." She just went back to her work, wiping her hands on her apron like she wanted to scrape something invisible off her skin. Later that night, I had to go back in for the coleslaw bins. The clock read 12:13. My gut screamed at me to leave it, but Greg would check, and Greg notices everything. I opened the door, and the cold hit me harder this time, like stepping into water that was waiting for me. I bent to grab the bins, and when I stood again, the wall had cleared itself. Letters etched sharp in the frost, as though someone had carved them with a nail. Don't feed them. I couldn't breathe. I blinked, and the words were gone, just water dripping down steel. My hand shook as I carried the bins out. The radio in the kitchen stuttered then, skipping a beat mid-song. And for a second, the music twisted into a voice, low, urgent, like a warning spoken through static. I didn't tell Maria. I didn't tell Greg. I just clocked out, my apron stiff with dried flour, and tried to convince myself that stress was making me see things. But I remembered something my mother used to say when I was a kid. Walls remember. They don't forget what was spilled on them. That night, lying in bed, I thought about all the chicken blood and fryer grease, all the decades of oil soaked into the walls of that building, and I wondered if she was right. Tiff the freezer. It wasn't just cold storage, but memory storage too. The next day, Maria cornered me during prep. She didn't ask if I'd seen anything, she asked if I'd heard anything. Her eyes flicked toward the walk-in door as she whispered, "If it talks, don't interrupt. Let it finish." Her voice cracked when she said finish, like she was remembering someone who hadn't let it. I nodded, but the truth is, I wasn't sure I could ever stand still long enough to listen. Closing shifts at KFC are supposed to be predictable. Lock the doors, wipe the counters, count the drawer, and hope nothing spills right when you're almost done. But nothing about our store ever stayed predictable after midnight. Time the drive-thru headset spoke when no one was there. I thought it was a prank, one of the crew messing with me. We'd already shut everything down for the night. Chairs flipped, mop water dumped, headsets hung neatly on their pegs like sleeping snakes. Then the speaker hissed. It started a static, the kind of crackle you'd get from an old radio. My hands moved before my head caught up, reaching for a headset because routine works faster than fear. "Welcome to KFC," I said automatically, voice shaking a little where I froze. The lot outside was empty. No headlights in the drive-thru lane, no engine idling, nothing but blacktop reflecting the dim hum of the menu board lights. And then the voice came. At first, it was a woman's soft, breathy, a tone you'd expect in a late-night commercial. "Dark meat," she whispered. Then her voice cracked, dropped into something lower. "Dark meat." I pulled the headset off like it was burning me. My heart hammered. I looked at Maria, who was restocking sauces near the prep table. "You hear this?" I asked. She didn't even glance at me, just kept shoving ketchup packs into the bin. "Bag it," she said flatly. "Put it at the window. Just don't open the drawer. Don't look out." My throat went dry. "You serious?" Before she could answer, Greg's office door opened. He didn't ask what was going on. He already knew. His eyes were on the security monitor, fingers tapping the desk like he was counting. "Do it," he said. His voice left no room for questions. So I did it. I bagged 2 thighs and 1 biscuit. "No, honey," like the voice had asked. My hands shook as I walked to the drive-thru window and slid the bag onto the shelf. The headset hissed again, and the same voice sighed in my ear. Softer now, pleased. "Good boy." The hairs on my neck stood up. Something scraped across the glass outside, not fingernails. It sounded wet, like gluey paper peeling from a window. The bag twitched, moved an inch on its own, then vanished. I stepped back, bile rising in my throat. My voice cracked when I asked, "Do we feed the homeless now?" Greg's grin was tight, humorless. "Don't be clever. Clever gets you curious." Before I could press, the headset crackled again. This time, the voice was different. Higher, faster, almost childlike, or like a recording played at the wrong speed. "Tell him to stay away from the mural," it said. My chest clenched. "Tell him not to count the lights." Maria stopped stocking sauces. Her hand hovered midair. We all looked at register too. The clamshell I'd left earlier sat there, lid still shut, untouched. But I swear, as the lights above hummed, I saw the cardboard rise and fall once, like it was breathing. My skin went clammy. I wanted to run out the back door, leave the whole building behind me, but my feet wouldn't move. Greg reached forward and flicked the monitor off, plunging the office window into darkness. "That bag will be back in the..." "Morning," Maria said softly, voice so low it was almost a prayer. Empty. No crumbs. No grease. I swallowed hard, still staring at the window. "What is it?" I whispered. "Who is it?" Greg's voice cut through the silence, sharp. "As a blade?" Wrong question. His eyes, flat and unreadable, pinned me in place. I forced the words out anyway. "Then what's the right one?" He leaned back in his chair, the faintest twitch pulling at the corners of his mouth. How long it's been hungry? In that moment, I knew. I wasn't just working at a KFC. I was feeding something I couldn't see. Every store has a monster hiding under it. At ours, it lives in the floor. Officially, it's just the grease trap, a square of iron buried behind the fryers, 4 bolts sunk deep into the lid, always smelling faintly of pennies and dishwater. We're supposed to leave it to contractors once a month, but Maria called me over one night after close, saying we needed to give it a soft clean. Her words, not mine. We rolled the fryers back, their wheels squealing like they didn't want to move, and there it was, the iron plate, old as the building itself, blackened from decades of spills and scrubbing. Maria didn't bring tools, just a container of salt, and a rag soaked in vinegar. "Why salt?" I asked, trying to mask the unease already crawling up my spine. She crouched low, poured a thin white circle around the lid, and said, "So it tastes something else first. So it finds a border." The way she said it made my throat tighten. We wiped the lid until the rag came back gray, then paused. When it knocked, not pipes, not settling, a hollow thump from below, deliberate, spaced like it was listening, and wanted us to know it could answer. My chest went tight, my pulse hammering in my ears. Maria didn't flinch. She just handed me. "Another rag here," she said. "Tell it your name, not out loud. Teeth together when you do." I laughed. Because what else do you do when someone tells you to introduce yourself to a grease trap? But the lid thumped again. Harder this time. Enough that dust shook down from the hood above us. My laugh died in my throat. I pressed my molars. "Together, like she said, and thought it, William?"
The iron warmed beneath my palm, faint but undeniable, as if something was pressing back.
Then from underneath came a smaller push, like a coin pressed up against the metal. The shape stayed. A second, cold and round, before fading away. When I lifted my hand, a faint circle was left behind, as if the iron itself had recorded the touch. Maria folded her rag the way you'd fold a flag, reverent, careful. "Jamal's coin looked like that," she muttered. I swallowed hard. "The guy who quit?" Her eyes flicked to mine, steady and cold. "If that helps you sleep." The lid thumped once more, softer this time, like a heartbeat settling back into rhythm. We slid the fryers back over it, careful not to break the salt line. On the surface, everything looked normal against the sizzle of oil. The smell of chicken butt, I couldn't shake the knowledge that something had answered me from beneath the floor. That night, as I clocked out, I caught myself staring at the mural again. The split tile below the Colonel's painted shoes seemed darker, thin hairline crack running from it straight toward the grease trap. The grout around it wasn't just stained. It was wet, as if something underneath had licked its way toward the mural and was waiting for someone to mop over it. I went home and scrubbed my hands 3 times, but I couldn't wash the smell out of my skin. It wasn't grease anymore. It was something sharper, something metallic, something alive. Trucks come every Tuesday and Friday, always the same way branded. Loud, paperwork signed, boxes scanned, drivers too tired to care. But the night that truck pulled in at 2:13 a.m., 2 hours after we'd locked up, it wasn't like that. No logo on the trailer, no clipboard. Just a black cab and a driver who didn't look at us. He stayed in his seat, staring straight ahead while Greg went out back to meet him. I followed because curiosity is a disease I can't seem to cure. The trailer hissed as the lift dropped, and on it sat a single pallet, wrapped so thick in cloudy plastic it might as well have been a body bag. The air around it smelled wrong, not the usual frozen chicken musk, but like river bottom's mud. Iron, rotting weeds. Greg signed for it without a pen, pressed his thumb to a small scanner. The driver held out the window. The scanner beeped, green, and that was it. No receipt, no words. The driver pulled the lift back up, turned the truck around without checking his mirrors, and disappeared down the highway like he was running from something. We rolled the pallet inside. I helped cut the wrap, every slice of the box cutter making me feel like I was peeling back skin. Inside were 4 boxes. The first was labeled marinade concentrate. The second had plastic gloves. The third was full of salt packets, hundreds, more than we'd use in a year. The fourth had no label, no weight stenciled on the side, just plain cardboard taped tighter than the others. I put my hands under the edge to lift it, but it was heavier than it looked. Too heavy. My shoulders screamed as I set it down again. Greg's hand was on it before I could ask. Inventory, he said. His voice was sharp, too sharp, like the word itself was a blade. I'll handle this one. He carried it down. The hallway to the old storage room, the one that's always locked. I'd never seen the key before, but Greg had it, hanging on a chain around his neck. He slipped inside, and when the door closed, I thought I heard something knock back faint. Hollow, like the sound from the grease trap, but deeper. I stood there, frozen, the smell of river mud still thick in my nose. What's in it? I asked when Greg came back out empty-handed. He didn't even pause. Waste. That word again? We keep waste, I said. He looked at me then, and his grin was gone. Not this kind. He locked the door behind him, tucked the key back under his shirt, and walked past me without another word. I stayed behind, staring at the door, my hands itching like I'd touched something I shouldn't have. Later, when I took the trash out, I followed the downspout that runs behind the building. It vanishes underground, reemerges by the culvert under the access road. I leaned down with my phone light and saw glints bits of foil, soda tabs, a quarter wedged between grates, and something else. Small bone, smooth, polished, round at the end like it had been rolling there a long time. Too small for an animal, too human for comfort. My stomach dropped. I backed away fast, breathing through my shirt. When I looked up at the store windows, the dining room lights were flickering again. Not random, not broken, deliberate. 3. Short, 3 long, 3 short. The message I wasn't supposed to count. Except this time, it didn't feel like it was signaling me. It felt like it was answering something underground. Day shifts make liars out of places. Sunlight through greasy windows can make even the darkest corner look ordinary, like nothing ever lurks there after midnight. That's why I almost convinced myself the mural was just paint, and just the Colonel, smiling forever, with that neat little Bodie, reminding customers that fried chicken can feel like family. But then I started noticing the details you don't see unless you stare too long. The whites of his suit weren't just faded, they were cracked, hairline fissures running across the wall like veins. The smile, though, the smile had been touched up. Layers of brighter, newer paint laid over and over, too thick compared to the rest. Someone had wanted that smile fresh. I didn't think much of it until I saw the tile beneath the mural. One square had a split down the center, almost invisible under mop streaks. But when I knelt and pressed my blade into the grout, it gave too icily. It crumbled, soft, like the earth under a grave marker. 8. Beneath it wasn't concrete, it was another tile. Older, dark red, glazed smooth, like butcher's block. I scraped more, and letters emerged, pressed into the ceramic. R, then E like the start of a word. My pulse picked up. Find something you want to pay for? Greg's voice came from behind me. I nearly dropped the blade. He crouched, stared at the crack, then shook his head with a tired chuckle. We paint over history in restaurants for a reason. I swallowed hard. What was this place before? His grin twitched. Doesn't matter. It matters. To the floor, I muttered. He didn't like that. His eyes hardened, and for a second, I thought he might say something dangerous. But instead he stood and said, "What do you think you're going to find? A treasure map?" He walked off, leaving me with the cracked tile and my racing thoughts. That night I came back with a damp rag after close. The lights flickered at 11:45, but I ignored them, pressing the rag against the mural's edge, scrubbing. Small circles. The paint peeled away like rubber, curling under my fingernails. Under the Colonel's Bodie was something else. Faint, but undeniable. A ghost logo. Cursive letters flourished reading Rendell Community Cannery. Date 1972. My blood went cold. I pulled my phone out, searched the name. Service was garbage, but a cached newspaper snippet loaded. Fire at local cannery. 3 workers unaccounted for. Rendering pit collapse suspected. The word rendering hit me like a hammer. Rendering pits. Animal fat boiled down. Fire. Workers missing. And now, decades later, a KFC built right over it, with a mural hiding the evidence like makeup on a corpse.
Nice.
My stomach turned. I shoved my phone back into my pocket, only to hear the headsets hiss behind me. I hadn't touched them. No one had. Then a voice slipped through, flat and distorted. Don't count. My skin crawled. Don't count. The mural's painted eyes seemed darker now, less like cheerful cartoon and more like wet holes. For the first time since I'd started, the smile didn't look friendly. Looked like it was waiting. Sunday nights are slow, but I've learned slow doesn't mean safe. That Sunday the dining room was quiet. Fryer scrubbed down the smell. Of bleach stronger than chicken. The radio sat on the counter, its little red light blinking, tuned low to some country station that never came in clear. At 11:44 p.m., just before the lights always do their thing, the music stuttered. 1 second it was a steel guitar twang, the next it was gone. Nothing but the sound of fryers cooling and the hum of the ventilation. I twisted the knob, smacked the side of the radio. Nothing. Maria was by the saucepan. Lips moving like she was whispering a prayer she thought I couldn't hear. At 11:45 on the dot, the lights began their dance. 3 short, 3 long. 3 short. I knew the pattern by heart, but I forced myself not to count. I kept wiping the counter, jaw tight, breathing slow. But this time, the rhythm changed. 2 long, 1 short, 2 long. Not the same message. Not Morse. More like a metronome. Keeping time. My body wanted to follow, each pulse dragging my heart into step. Then the drive-through headset cracked open with static, and a voice poured into my ear. It wasn't a stranger this time. It was me. My voice pitched lower, distorted like a voicemail. "Slowed down, William," it said. "Register 2. I froze. Clamshell sat there, the one we always left, lid closed. Only this time I hadn't put anything in it yet. It was already there. I picked it up. Warm. My finger stuck to the cardboard as if it were damp, but when I looked, it wasn't grease. It was nothing. Empty. And yet the box felt alive. Breathing. Maria's voice cut through my panic. "Don't open it." I looked at her. She didn't move closer, didn't reach for me, just stared at the box like it was a live wire. My hands shook. "Then what's in it?" She swallowed. "Not what?" "Who?" My skin went cold.
Thanks.
Office door creaked open, and he stepped out wearing something I'd never seen before, heavy vest with slits across the front, like slots for holding blades or names. He didn't even look surprised to see me holding the box. "Inventory," he said, as if that explained anything. "William, with me." He started toward the locked hallway, the one that led to the old storage. I stood there, frozen, between him and Maria. "Why me?" I finally asked. Greg stopped, glanced back at me with eyes that looked older than his face. "Because it asks for new names," he said. "It doesn't like old ones." My stomach dropped. I thought of Jamal, the guy who'd quit. I thought of the circle pressed into the grease trap lid. My name whispered in frost. Maria spoke. Then, louder than I'd ever heard her, voice shaking but steady. "You don't have to do this, Will," Greg sneered, and the corners of his mouth twitched into something that was supposed to be a smile. "He does if we're going to keep." The door's open. Maria reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a handful of silver packets, the kind we hand out with fries. Salt. More than I'd ever seen her carry at once. She tore one open, let the grains spill into her palm. "There are other ways." "Too close," she said. Greg's hand twitched like he wanted to lunge at her, but he didn't. The headset hissed again, my own voice whispering from the speaker, "Don't count. Don't count. Don't count." And all at once, the lights above us flared. every bulb burning so bright I had to cover my eyes. For the first time, I felt sure of something whatever was waiting in that hallway, whatever Greg was leading me toward. It wasn't just hunger, it was history. And it had been waiting for me. The hallway behind the storage room didn't feel like part of the restaurant anymore. The walls were bare concrete, cold and wet, the air thicker with every step. Greg's key turned in the rusted lock like it had been waiting for years. And when the door swung open, the smell hit me sweet, hot, rancid, like fat that had been cooking too long. We descended a narrow flight of stairs, Maria trailing close. Behind me, her fists clenching the salt packets so tight they crinkled. At the bottom was a room that didn't belong to a KFC, or to anything that should have been standing in 2025. Pipes as thick as tree trunks crisscrossed the ceiling. Sweating condensation. In the center was a pita-wide steel lip, with an old ladder that went nowhere. Surface below looked like black oil, but it moved against gravity, rippling upward, tugging at the light. I stopped breathing for a moment because I thought I saw a reflection in my own face, but the eyes weren't mine. They were too dark, too hungry. Greg walked right to the edge like it was a pulpit, and he was the preacher. "This is where it goes," he said. His voice carried the way voices do in churches. "We don't feed people. We feed names. A name is a promise, a future. This eats the promise so the rest of us can keep working." He gestured to the walls, and that's when I saw them. Names carved into the concrete in rough, uneven lines. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Some I recognized, old crew lists, faces eyed, seen in faded group photos by the office. Some were older, family names from town history. A whole wall of futures traded away like nothing. My chest went tight. "You think this is survival?" said my voice raw. "You're just feeding it pieces of us." Greg smiled without looking back. "And yet the fryers don't explode. The freezers don't jam. We keep the doors open. Customers eat. We get paid. That's survival." He tapped his chest where the slits in his vest held something I couldn't. "See, I carry names because not everyone deserves to give their own." I wanted to step forward, shove him into the pit, but the surface shifted before I could move. Faces opened in it, not full, but pieces. Cheek, a jawline, lips forming half words before dissolving back into grease. The lights above pulsed, sinking with it, like the whole building was breathing through the pit. Maria tore a salt packet open and poured a white line across the floor between us and the lip. The black surface shivered, the faces smearing into nothing, but Greg just laughed. "Salt is for upstairs," he said. His boot shot out, smearing the line. The pit heaved like it had been waiting for that signal. The iron ladder groaned. The liquid bulged upward, stretching thin, almost forming arms. Maria yanked my sleeve. "Back now." Her voice was sharp with terror, sharper than I'd ever heard it. But Greg was already pulling at the bolts around the lip. Each one screeched like metal in pain as he loosened it. "It won't be satisfied until it takes him," Greg barked, pointing at me. "It already knows his name," the word name echoed, bouncing off the pipes. My skin crawled, because I realized he was right, the freezer whisper. The headset, the flickering lights, they'd all said it. They knew me, they'd been practicing me. The pit swelled higher, froth bubbling like boiling tar, and I caught a glimpse of Jamal's name scratched over and over in one corner of the wall. Letters carved deep until the concrete had crumbled. He hadn't quit. He'd been kept. The thought slammed into me like a brick. My pulse roared in my ears, but I did the only thing I could die, grabbed the handfuls of salt from Maria and started ripping them open, scattering white borders across. The floor, drawing lines between us and it, between Greg and me. The pit screamed not loud, but inside, pressing against the skull. It was a hunger sound, a disappointed sound, and I thought, if I listened too long, I'd fall straight in. Maria shoved me toward the stairs. "Run," she hissed. Greg's voice followed us up, half fury, half worship. "You can't starve. It'll follow you. You're already part of the walls." His laughter tangled with the pit's heaving groan, chasing me up the stairwell. When we burst into the kitchen again, I slammed the door behind us, my hands coated in salt dust. The floor trembled once, the friars rattling in their slots, and then it stopped. For a moment I thought maybe it had let us go. But when I glanced at the mural, the cracked tile beneath the colonel's painted shoes had grown darker. A thin red line of something wet was seeping through the grout, crawling toward the grease trap like blood seeking a vein. The building knew we'd betrayed it. That's the only way I can explain what happened after we slammed the storage door shut and stumbled back into the kitchen. The friars weren't quiet anymore. They were roaring, lids rattling like something underneath was banging to get out. The radio shrieked with static, then every headset hanging on the wall screamed at once, feedback so sharp it cut straight through my skull. And beneath it, layered in the noise, came a chorus of voices. Mine, Maria's, Greg's, Jamal's. Voices I didn't even recognize. All of them chanting the same phrase. Open to close. Open to close. The lights strobed so violently that every shadow turned into a film reel, jerking forward frame by frame, showing me glimpses of things that shouldn't exist. Faces pressed into the walls. Arms stretching too long. The mural's smiles splitting wider, paint dripping like saliva. Greg burst up from the stairwell, his vest torn, eyes wild like he'd been stripped down to nothing human. He staggered toward the grease trap and dropped to his knees. It takes names, or it takes everything, he shouted, fumbling at the bolts. We give it him. We keep the doors open. His finger jabbed at me, shaking. Maria ripped open more salt packets, scattering white lines across the tile. Not this time, she growled, her voice shaking but steady. Not anymore. I knew then what had to happen. The pit wasn't going to stop asking. Greg wasn't going to stop giving. The building wasn't going to let us walk away unless something stronger than hunger forced it shut. I made borders. Fast. I dragged open flour bags, dumping white powder across the grease trails until it looked like snow drifting over amber rivers. Maria tipped the oil caddy, grease sliding in gleaming lines toward the crack beneath the mural. I struck a lighter. The fire caught instantly, crawling along the flour and oil like it had been waiting. Blue flame traced every seam, racing toward the mural's split tile, climbing the crack as though it were a wick. The colonel's smile twisted as the heat licked up his painted face, the white of his suit blackening, peeling away to reveal those hidden red tiles underneath, stamped with letters that spelled not just Ren but Render. My stomach turned as I realized what had always been beneath USA rendering pit, where fat, flesh, and bone had boiled long before fried chicken ever touched this ground. The building shook, ceiling tiles raining dust, and the grease trap. Lid popped once as if something below was furious it couldn't come through. Greg screamed, lunging across the burning floor, toward me. But Maria pulled the CO extinguisher from the wall and sprayed. White frost swallowed fire, then surged into the trap itself, choking the heat, starving it. I grabbed her arm now. Together, we dragged biscuit racks across the burning seams, smothering the crack beneath the mural. The fire died down to embers, the smell of scorched paint and old grease filling my lungs. For a heartbeat, the whole building went silent. And then the grease trap lid slammed shut with a metallic crack, so loud it felt like a gunshot. The last bolt spun itself tight without anyone touching it. The friars hissed once and went still. The headsets dropped into dead air. Even the lights steadied, glowing soft, almost innocent. Greg collapsed against the friar wall, tears cutting streaks through the ash on his face. You don't understand, he rasped. It'll come back. It always comes back. He laughed then, a broken sound, like he wasn't sure if he'd won or lost. Maria knelt by him, shook her head and whispered, Then we'll close it again. We left him there, rocking and muttering to the floor. Out front, the mural was scorched black where the colonel's face had been, his smile finally burned away. The split tile beneath was cracked open wider, but sealed by ash and salt. We swept it clean, slow and careful, then taped a new index card over the rules by the office. I wrote the last line myself. If the lights start counting back, don't be clever. Be ready. I'm still here. I open Tuesdays, close Sundays. I mop around the split tile. I keep the music on. I never count the lights. And sometimes when I take the trash out at night, I swear I can hear voices moving through the culvert under the road, not loud, not begging. If you ever stop at the KFC off Highway 22 after midnight and the lights flicker, do yourself a favor. Keep your eyes down, take your food, and leave. Because I know one thing for sure. The building remembers names. And it's always hungry for more.